Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, people of all color, folks of all neurodiversities, welcome to Speaking of the Spectrum. Whether you're an autistic individual, whether you're a parent of an autistic individual, such as myself and my co host, whether you are someone who just knows someone who has autism or someone related to, or someone just looking for a great piece of conversation, as my co host loves to drop some gems every now and then. This is a podcast for everybody. So, welcome to the show. This is our fifth episode this season. Um, and it's been a great ride. Season one was awesome. Season two is kicking up, and we have some great guests still coming in. We'll introduce our next one in a second. But my co host, who am I? I keep forgetting to introduce myself. This happened last time, too. I am Shahrukh Sultan, the man with a plan from Pakistan. I am a project manager by day. I am the Autism Society Greater Hudson Region Vice President on some days. And above all, I'm an autism parent on days and many hours of the night because my son has fun with sleep sometimes. And he loves to torture us in the middle of the night. I won't call it torture, but you know what I mean. My co host, multiple book author, child prodigy, former ASGHR president, ultra marathon runner, finance expert, human Kaizen guru, crouching duck, hidden pirate, but I saved that one for the last. But aside all of that, in case I missed anything, he's just your average Joe Templin.
Shahrukh, thank you. And I love how you almost forgot to introduce yourself yet again, because this is something that as an autism dad often happens is our kid ends up taking precedence over us. And I don't want to say we get pushed into the background, but we fade into it, whether it's for that kid, our neuronormal children, the other members of the family. We tend to take the back seat in very often, especially in terms of attention. And so if you are an autism dad or mom or an older brother or sister, younger brother or sister who is helping to care for somebody who's on the spectrum, don't forget to take the time to take care of yourself, because it can be so overwhelming in a lot of ways. As my friend Athena reminds me, you're no good to me if you're broken. And as they say on the airplanes, the mask comes down, take care of yourself before you take care of others. So we weren't planning on talking about this, but Shahrukh teed it up a little bit.
I'm
take care of yourself so that you can take care of your special person.
That is a very valid point, but just to be clear, the reason I forget about myself is because your list of accomplishments eclipses anything I've ever done. So I really like to jump to you first, and that's in my mind, that comes up first. But thank you. I'll take care of myself first, quote unquote. Thank you to our sponsors, as always, Pulse MD and Pan Dermatology, not Pan Dermatology. Sometimes coffee has bad effects. Thank you all for supporting us for season one and Pan Dermatology for season two. We have right. That's what I said. We have a guest today. He is a very inspiring individual.
Yes.
Andrew Arboe, you are an autism self-advocate. You are a speaker. You started out, I believe, it has something to do with driving, right? Was that right?
Yeah, perhaps more. Oh, geez, I see two of me now. Well, feels campy. Luckily, I don't have your coffee effects. It actually calms me down. Actually, calms me quite a bit, energizes me because currently I work as a teacher's assistant over at Focus Center for Autism in Connecticut. And yeah, and I do a lot of one-to-ones. I help out with the classroom spaces, and you definitely need a lot of energy for that. But my background is I did start a few driving programs, like one of the driving school, and the other one I did myself, one with a financial firm. But it's kind of introduced me to a lot of different organizations. I think that's how I got the word organizations, because it's a New York-ish podcast, like Andrew Center for Autism, Transitions. They have a few places in Newark, one in Allenby, if I'm not mistaken. So it kind of introduced me to a lot of the different places on there. In the past, I actually started a few nonprofits, and I actually worked in school as a job coach, so I have a bit of background in that. I decided to get into the autism field, and I'm probably skipping ahead. Want me to save that for later, little later, or I can
let's
go
let's
ahead?
let's do
Let's
it.
just go,
Let's just
man.
go with it.
Okay, fair. Because I'm always kind of see myself unconventional. I mean, that's kind of no surprise. I think that comes in with the autism aspect.
Yep.
Um, but I never was a good fit with. I'm not a technology guy, like never been.
Hmm.
Like I originally wanted to make video games, but I knew next to nothing about it. I wanted to be into cooking, but kitchens end up being too stressful. And I mean working kitchens, not like regular kitchens.
Right, right.
Like I tried one golf place when I was in an 1821 program in back in the day when it's like used to not be 22. And it was way too much. And I just wanted to sit in the corner and watch. I think was reading the Hunger Games. So I was like, I wanted to sit in the corner and read that. It didn't work out for me. And I decided like, nope. And I was starting to get really interested in the autism topic. I've been self-aware for a while, and I wanted to kind of improve outcomes to see like, does it have to be this way? You know, like I don't have to mention too much. Like there's a lot of statistics out there. And still growing from like the last decade. So it's
Yeah.
been officially 10 years, like a decade since I aged out. Crazy, a bit crazy
Wow. Yeah.
that. And but I wanted to kind of do something. I saw from this community college. It's over in Connecticut, Manchester Community College. They have this disability specialist major, and I was like, this sounds interesting. Like maybe I can get somewhere with this. Ended up choosing the degree with the most socialization possible. Took me a while to get over that until I realized it was kind of like I grew up in that stereotype that like autistic people, or I don't know, this podcast prefers person first, dandy first. I have no preference, so if
Right.
you can call me whatever. I'm very vax because I've been in this community for years, and I think parts of the community could use some more kinder approaches and not too much policing, if you know what I mean.
I hear you.
Just
Yeah.
being accepting of like different perspectives and all that. Not
Yeah.
everyone, but you know. But I wanted to change outcomes, and I realized I grew up with the idea that people should be in specific jobs, but then I realized it was nonsensical. I kept finding people that are into this. Like I know a couple people in Connecticut, advocates that worked in a lot of different places, like Yale, for example. I know someone who's a occupational therapist. So it's actually a lot more diverse when I realized that. And one of my other ones, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I'm hoping to see hoping to see more employment programs that isn't just technology wise, like an autism work program. I mean, can
Mhm.
you imagine it would be like a cool autism work program, let's say as at a school district? Like that'd be kind of cool for those that are into education or into art. Like I would like to see any of that as I kind of age throughout this life. So I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but kind of choosed over here and yeah, just did a lot of different ones. I'm kind of like I did a lot of series of different jobs, and I've also recently got myself into direct care. I work per diem for my school. Didn't
Mhm.
think think I'd be able to do such a thing, but I've been kind of liking that different perspective because I always heard of direct support professionals, like being a demanding job, and like and I know I think New York is doing a lot on making it like a really what's the correct word? Like suitable job? Well, making it
Compatible.
more yeah, compatible. Like more pay. I know that's can be an issue. I know it's probably different in every state because you have a lot of differences between, let's say, Connecticut, New York. Like Connecticut, like there's not a lot in terms of like when you go up to like 22.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And then there's places like, let's say, Mass, that's kind of next door. And I've been doing a lot of my public speaking over there. Like, fun fact, if you go on my website testimonies and also the organizations I appeared on, you will notice a lot of Massachusetts because I done drives over there like almost quite a bit the last year or so, including like being a keynote speaker for Autism Connections over there.
I over the summer, so my son was having like he was kind of struggling with a lot of things,
Mm,
without having activities, and we were trying to look at like other states we could move into where like services might be better than New York or
Mhm.
quicker available, and we found that Massachusetts
mm,
came up a lot, and it works for us because we have some relatives there, but we
mm,
seriously considered like Massachusetts for that reason. Like I know there's one of like the top autism schools is in Massachusetts, and the Boston Children's Hospital has like a lot of resources there. So that state keeps coming up a lot. I think we're lucky to have it
mm.
next door, right?
I have to remind myself to not ignore Connecticut when public
Because you actually
speaking.
live there, yeah, yeah,
I recently joined, a few months I joined Disability Rights Connecticut
got it.
on their board of directors
Oh
because
wow.
I have to remind myself to don't forget my origins. even yes, mass is appealing, but I will say it here that I feel like for a lot of places, you'd be amazed at what's not around, but what is around. Funny enough, like like I know upstate New York is kind of doing some impressive stuff, and I'm also saying that because I'm technically part of Andrew Center for Autism's consultation board.
Right,
I'm
right.
on their contract wise, so I could be a little biased.
Well,
And I
the
know I like
president
a
of
lot.
our board is from
Yeah,
Anderson
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
Tracy. Yep.
She's great.
Yeah, she's awesome.
But I'm always impressed there, especially Autism Up. Like they have like that housing stuff going on there. I'm excited to see. I follow various Facebook groups
mhm.
because I kind of like to know what's going on there, and that's kind of how I kind of find my clientele. I use the word clients. I know not everyone likes that word, but for my public speaking, I usually go clients, and I like to be as specific.
Yeah, yeah. So as far as the driving
But
part goes, Andrew, like that really appealed to me because I think like when I think about my kid or other autistic individuals, right, transport's a huge deal, right? Especially like when you think about aging out or like how you're gonna like go to your
mhm.
work and stuff when like as a parent if you're not around, how's your kid gonna get there? So let me ask you this, like were you drawn to driving out of pure need or was it something you found that was like you liked it because it was productive or like say, for example someone like me I like long drives because they're
Right.
soothing you get to kind of relax. Did you have like that kind of a feel from it too? Is that what drew you to it or
The latter came much later. It was more of a need because my degree kind of needed like a lot of the jobs for disability specialists, kind of like the therapy jobs. Like, if you look at like kind of the ABA places or the RPT, you kind of noticing like travel or like a mentor, kind of like a mentorship that also comes up a lot.
Mhm.
So I realized it became more of a need just to kind of to be adaptable, if you know what I mean.
right?
Along with, I'm trying not to badmouth any states here, and trying,
Mhm.
and I imagine all of you are trying not to be biased with Massachusetts. There, if you're midway, I don't blame you, but this is a New York podcast on the most part.
Sure. We're the
And
And to be
greater
fair,
Hudson region,
again,
yeah.
upstate New York has actually a good amount of places like I would actually love to be on. With like a resource fair through Anderson Center ways, I would love to be part of that. But I signed up to be an information booth
Mhm.
table because I'll be doing a New Jersey drive on that same week on the October 22nd. I have to pace myself. So it's like it's gonna be. I can't justify the gas cost there. Usually I'm okay with it, but it's rough timing. I get off school like
And you're coming
2:30.
to our yeah, you're coming to our walk in on September 21st
Oh
too,
yeah,
right?
that's for
You're,
me. It's
you're
on a week. It's like on a weekend.
yeah, it's on
I
a
Mhm.
managed to
weekend,
get
yeah.
up a little bit early. It's like 2.5 hours. So
Gotcha. Yeah, we
it's
look
kind
for,
of both a need and also pressure because I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
no
I've
no
been
go ahead,
rolling
go ahead.
on rooms of coffee. But I knew you should just enjoy it. Like getting listen to a lot of video game soundtracks. I might listen to some podcasts.
Yeah.
So kind of yeah, and I always like seeing new things. Like I've been doing a lot on. They call this have you heard of Stuart Brown's play theory? Of how adults can benefit from play. And I've discovered from the last month or so that I have like a explorer personality.
Mhm.
I'm not good at correcting technically, but I've been kind of downsizing that through video games. But exper- experience kind of like exploring like different perspectives, seeing new things, and even if it's like the most serious things, like seeing new coffee places, like I enjoy that. To follow New York as example, I know Sleepy Hollow, that town has a
Yeah.
new inclusive coffee shop. I'm thinking when I go, because I'll be speaking at a conference in New Jersey next month. I actually am really considering stopping by and visiting Sleepy Hollow because it just sounds promising and just like to support that sort of business. But I should probably go back to actually answering your question before I go off
Yeah.
the rails even more. It's just a need because Connecticut does not have a lot of resources there, and it's gotten better over time. I don't want to be also biased because I added like it was part of a couple partnerships that kind of had a lot of different I wouldn't say mixed results, but I kind of yeah, kind of had to work around that. But there's been at least a few more like driver simulators for I know in Connecticut there's this hospital of special care that has like a new have a couple of new driving people over there. So it's kind of it's a slow burn. It's like
Yeah.
slowly kind of getting there. And while I kind of moved away as it being my main accuracy, like it's still a good part of it. It's still kind of the starting block of it, and that's kind of how I started my public speaking, just kind of getting out there. I kind of am the firm belief, and I don't want this to speak for every autistic person because that's not how autism works. I'm sure both of you can agree there. But it's like I kind of wanted to be like, hey, if it's something to be worth exploring, like awesome. And then if you know for a fact your person is not going to be safe, yeah, that's good. That's a good idea also. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like, hey, this is cool. Transportation's cool. And then this, like, kind of like, I would like to see it kind of like you go on any disability autism websites and you just see driving casually there instead of like, like public buses and other ones. I've seen the latter all the time.
Right.
So if one day see like a sparking new driving page, that would be good.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna ask actually what one of the things we'd like to see is like what a perfect autistic community would be like, right? So that's a good point. But Joe, like we were talking earlier, right? And we usually have like a hero or a fact we want to share.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have anything today that we could share with the
Well, one of the things that Andrew brought up was video game music.
Mhm.
oh, okay,
And,
okay.
you
So
know, no,
I can go on with this because I have to kind of work with my students who have all these different different music tastes, and I'm like, I am super narrow, and I just enjoy all these video game soundtracks for the most part. It
and
gets a
it,
little tricky and kind of conversations. It's that restrictive slash special interest. So
mhm.
Mm. Right.
And
something I have to navigate.
in a lot of ways, a lot of people on the spectrum really glom onto that. And so one of the things that could be a decent indicator if you're wondering, hey, is my kid on the spectrum or everything? If they're really into that repetitive, playing the same song over 500 times, and not
Oh
just,
yeah.
Baby Shark
Ouch.
or
No,
stuff
I'm
like
kidding,
that,
kidding.
but it's almost like audio stimming in some
Yeah.
ways. And so, like, my youngest does it. He's got a couple of songs like this one by Sabaton they'll play 1,000 times over. Or there's the one with the dwarves digging a hole, diggity hole. Every parent probably has heard that over and over again. So that is something that a lot of individuals on the spectrum use. But if you look, music therapy there's a couple of research articles that have been coming out for the past couple of years around this. And there was one in the International Journal Res Public Health in 2022. And music therapy, this repetitive nature and then slowly expanding it, can help reduce anxiety. It can help the individual self-regulate, and it can improve social outcomes if they're using music to help describe emotional states. So we've all heard Darth Vader's Imperial thing, dun, 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 dun. And so that's one thing that can be used. Sad music, happy music. So it helps, especially younger ones who are learning about this, to identify and to be able to put words and understanding around it. And that can then help them learn to be able to pick up on the social cues and interact with other individuals better.
My son actually at school gets music therapy too through the school, and it's helped. Like for exactly, he really likes going to the class. Like I never, never, I never imagined he'd like going to a music class because of the noise. But they actually do a really good job. And he likes strumming guitar or something.
So it's active in addition to the passive, because those are two different components
Okay.
of music therapy. Some is just listening and appreciating, but some is actually creating the music and utilizing it as a communication tool. And that leads into actually my hero that I was going to bring up. And I actually have a couple because, I enjoy a very eclectic musical
I would expect
background.
nothing less.
So some of individuals who are well-known musicians who are on the spectrum, John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Oh,
Bob Dylan, Nobel Prize winner, which leads to our next discussion with our next guest,
okay.
James Taylor, who just recently appeared at SPAC, I believe, and John Denver.
Oh, John Denver.
Yes. So these are all very well-known autistic musicians. And my future ex-wife, Billie Eilish, pirate bard of O'Connell.
I like how you went to future X1. I had to take a minute to put that math together. Awesome. Well, that's a great roundup, right? Like, I mean, music therapy. The other thing I remember was when we talked to Dr. Rodney Morgan last season, right, who himself is autistic, but he mentioned to me on the side he had a friend, a close friend he's known for many years, and he said he's never actually spoken to him verbally, right? And I asked him like, well, how do you guys communicate? And he said actually through drumming. He said his friend uses the pace of drums to express how he's feeling, and from that I can ask him questions, and then he responds with the drumming, which is like
Genius.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty crazy. Yeah,
And you remember one of the things that we talked about last season when we talked about how the fact that nonverbal does not mean non-communicative.
yeah, right.
Music is older than speech. And so if used properly can be another medium for communication.
Yeah, it's true. So it was something new discovered, right? Music. Let's go back and think more about music.
Speaking of languages, by the way,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Don't we have a new word, a new language to learn today?
well, it's an old word, a word that we've been going over again and again and again, using the word autism in different languages. And so in our first episode of the season, we talked about how I had that great adventure over the mountain.
Yeah.
And it was all because I went to see my auntie Saguna, who's the former head of psychiatry at Albany Med. And she's Hindi and, made the incredible amount of Indian food and everything. So I was talking with her and my cousin to find out that in Hindi, it is, I'm going to mess this up. I apologize, auntie. At and kindrit. At in kindrit, which means self-reliant.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, we've heard a lot of self in these translations, right? Self-reflective, questioning.
Even
right,
autism, independent, the one,
Yeah.
self.
But the self-reliant part is very interesting because you would think somebody autistic needs a lot of help, right? So, like, how did you get any insights into why in Hinduism they went to self-reliance versus, self?
Because I think that it's because of the social disconnect that often occurs with individuals on the spectrum where others have trouble communicating with them. And so they have to take care of themselves and they, sometimes become somewhat ostracized. And when you're cut off from the other members of your tribe or your group, then you have to become self-reliant to get through it. And unfortunately, in that sort of situation, it is the negative aspect of it as opposed to the positive aspect of developing independence.
So you're right. Like, so you almost have to rely on yourself to find a way to communicate. Like for my son, who's like non-speaking, right? He can't speak, so he has to rely on himself to find a way to get the message across to us. Like we can't teach him. Like I've been trying to tell him, like, hey, why don't you type a word for what you want? Sometimes it works, but a lot of times he has his own way of telling us what he needs. Like he'll tap on something, he'll hum a certain way, or it'll go in a certain direction. That's the self-reliance part. That actually makes a lot of sense.
I saw a really cool thing on, I think it was TikTok or YouTube, and it was in French. And the father has a tattoo on his arm with all the letters. And the son will spell out actually what he wants.
Oh, wow.
So, he'll spell out the French equivalent of more or milk or whatever, play, sleep. So the kid is, again, nonverbal, but does not mean non-communicative.
Yeah. Speaking of, we talked about Rodney Morgan a minute ago. But so, Andrew, we have a section on the podcast called The Atom Project. I don't know if you like Ryan Reynolds or any of his movies, but he has a time travel movie called The Atom
Deadpool.
Project. Right, Deadpool.
I saw
Wolverine,
Deadpool recently.
Right. Yeah. So we try to like get his attention to see if he'll ask us to stop using his movie name, because the Atom Project for our podcast, the Atom part stands for Autism Dads and Moms. Right. So we try to either reach out to our listeners or followers, or we try to come up with like a parenting tip or something that might help others out there. So actually, Rodney Morgan, I'm kind of touched by this. Like he was actually listening to our last session, and he heard my summer story about where the power went out, and my son couldn't stay, and we had to find a way to like get him somewhere calmer. So we ended up driving to my sister-in-law's house in Boston because we had no power for 12 hours. So Dr. Rodney, graciously sent some feedback and said, "Hey, I need nonstop power at my house too, because if not, I can't function, etc." So he recommended that we get a battery backup or a power backup. And this is something as I'm saying it on the screen, I'm sure my wife is looking like, I told you so. You won't listen to what I say, right? But it's
Doctor's
like,
orders,
doctor,
though.
well, now that the doctor said it, you listen. They're like, yes, okay, honey, we'll get a power backup for it. But such a simple solution, right? Like, well, duh, just go to Lowe's, pick one up. You know, it's going to be worth the investment. At least get them a few hours of power so we can survive the night, not have to drive middle of the night to of all states, Massachusetts again to come to the rescue, Andrew. Like, I do want to wrap things up soon. But Andrew, thanks a lot for your time. I think we'll see you in a few weeks over at our walk. Thanks for insights. I'll definitely pick your brain more there too. And you know, thanks for all the work you do, especially like, you know, I love talking to other folks that are autistic, that are self-advocates, that are making it easier. I mean, easier and making it less stressful for parents like me to know that, hey, what is the future out there, right? And with heroes like you out there trying to pave the way for our kids, that goes a long way. It's going to make that perfect world for, you know, folks on the autistic spectrum. So
Oh, now let me add a few more words. Or
Yeah,
okay,
go ahead.
that looks like it. I'm seeing two chromes of myself here. um, yeah, always happy. Yep, always being here. And then during the walk, I'll be having a lot of my materials.
perfect.
I've got more information referralship, and if anyone wanted to reach out to me public speaking wise, I usually do it behind emails and Zooms, kind of.
Got
It
it.
makes it kind of easier, and as you know, it was kind of weird trying to figure myself which way that. So I
Mhm.
wanted to give special thanks to the Facebook page for kind of finding out because I always wanted to kind of pick the right one, and because I've been very thankful of my past interactions, like your past executive director, I did a cool presentation with last year, and that was I always remember that awesome time over there at the University of Allenby. Like that was a good, yeah, it was a great time. And
Awesome.
then for myself, Falcon, just want to see how it goes. Like a lot of times, because I'm kind of in the gray side of like autism politics, I kind of do my own thing.
Hmm.
It's kind of weird the way, but I'm kind of like I don't wanna say doing it for myself, but kind of like doing because I can't represent everyone for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Because I've known so many different people from many different organizations, and I can't possibly cover them all. But I
Hmm.
think that's fine. Just kind of like
Yeah.
just go for stuff I person go. Like all my topics, my speaking topics are all just personalized stuff that makes sense and I actually read through. So kind of do stuff there and leave it up to people to decide what they take from materials. There might be
Yep.
some that might be like I might be a little way too proactive or way too caffeinated. Like I kind of expect that at some points. But I kind of want to leave it kind of up to people to decide. I feel like a lot easier and a lot less forceful, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
completely
Yeah.
heard. Well, thanks so much,
Because
Andrew. Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, you're
Now,
probably gonna
I
go.
was just gonna say thanks a lot for your time and
So much to
insights.
talk about. I
Yep.
wish this
Yeah.
was a little bit longer,
Exactly.
but I can't complain.
Yep. No, and that's why we call the show "Speaking of the Spectrum" because that's how we're gonna get there by keep speaking of the spectrum. Well, thanks all for catching us. Watch our next episode where we have a special guest, the head honcho himself. Teaser alert. Chris Banks will be joining us, so we'll talk soon.
Ooh.
And yep. So like and subscribe. Bye all.